My name is Alan Priesman. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska in November 1948. Born and raised and stayed here through my growing up years. Lived in what we call West Omaha. Enjoyed growing up here. Had wonderful friends. It's a wonderful community. I have just the fondest memories of from grade school, going to Camp JCC, going to Lewis and Clark Junior High, and going to Central High. I still try to maintain friends from the past. Not that I talk to them all the time, but keep up with them in one way or the other. When I talk about Omaha to friends where I live in Texas or from other parts of the country, I say it was a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up. Very real, wonderful people. And I moved away for when I went to college, and Omaha wasn't a place I could live in because I didn't like snow. But you know, I have just fond memories.
Well, I'm Harland Priesman, and I grew up in Omaha also. We grew up at 5820 Hamilton Street, and I went to Harrison School. I went to Dundee School for middle school, and then Central High. And Omaha is a great place. I moved to Lincoln for business, and but working with an Omaha family, with the Cabbage family, I worked for Allmakes Office Equipment for 43 years and ran their Lincoln store. And I've kept up with all my Omaha friends, and Omaha is a great place to live. And I'm back all the time, so I live close. But I just saw my consecration picture on the wall at the JCC, so that's kind of neat.
My dad was born in Omaha, but my grandmother was born in Omaha, and grandfather. So I'd say we were third generation Omaha. It's very unusual to have grandparents at that time that were born in the United States, yet alone Omaha, Nebraska. My grandfather got here. His family was from Ohio, but my grandfather was born here, and then my grandmother was also born here. My mother was born in Minnesota, or St. Paul, I believe, but lived in Chicago, and then she met my father and moved here, and became a true Omaha person. They loved Omaha. They really did. They loved the people here, and they had wonderful friends that we all, grew up with. And since we didn't have, I wouldn't say a lot of family here, we had a nice family here, but the friends were like, the friends of my parents were also like family.
The Greenstones were close friends with them, and Sylvia and Joe, and also the Foxes, Al and Esther Fox, very close with them. And there's some others.
Landau's, Irvin B. Landau, were close friends. I mean, there were a lot of wonderful people. A lot of wonderful people. They had close friends. They had fun together.
They traveled together.
My father was a musician too. I mean, I think that was his first love. He didn't make a sole living doing that, but he knew so many people because of being in the music business. I mean, he was, he did weddings, he did bar mitzvahs, he did all kinds of things. He was very involved in the shrine and in the Chanters, which was the singing group, and he played the piano and the organ, and also, I believe, in the shrine band. And they had fun. My parents had fun in that because they traveled to the conventions and so on, and they had a good time. And I think my dad was pretty well known in the city and more for his music than for being in the printing business.
He was also an attorney. He graduated from Creighton. But when he graduated, there wasn't enough work. And so he continued. He worked for KBON, the radio station, 1490, and he was live on the air. Played the organ and the piano on the air. And loved that. And then he actually got into sales and used to sell advertising for them. And I think when he was about 40, he decided to join the family printing business. It wasn't his love, but he needed to join and help them out. And when I used to walk downtown with my dad, or we'd walk up to Northrop Jones, or everybody'd say, "Hi, Ernie." He knew all the lawyers, and he knew a lot of people from the organ and from his band and all that.
And my grandmother, she was a wonderful cook and baker. She, to this day, I can still kind of taste some of the things she used to make, but she spent her life in the kitchen, it seemed like. But she loved it. She loved it. She didn't eat that much, but she loved to make good food, and she could make all the Jewish food, the matzo balls, the krapach, wonderful pastries and things like that. And she wasn't a big woman. And my Uncle Maynard Telpner used to call her Mighty because she was a strong little lady.
When she came to the house, she would have at least one shopping bag, maybe two, full of treats and food, that she brought to us. And I remember also we used to meet her downtown at Brandeis under the clock,
Right.
and have lunch. And that was, we took the bus downtown, and that was fun. And when we moved out to Hamilton Street, we were 58th and Hamilton, and the city went to 72nd Street. And so we bought the house because one of the reasons is it was close to a bus, went by it, and the bus would take you all the way out to 72nd or take you downtown. That was a big deal. And my mother started driving when she moved out there. But that was another story.
And I remember going on the streetcar with my grandmother. So that was, that was a long time ago. But when Omaha had streetcars, when any city had streetcars. And that was always special, and we would go to like Northrop Jones or places like that. And Bishop's, I think there was. But that was always a special day.
Yeah. We went to the Hill Hotel. There was a restaurant there. I remember that.
And then my grandmother lived for a while at the Rorick Hotel, or Rorick Apartments. And I remember we would walk downtown from there.
And then she moved to an apartment after that.
In Dundee.
Yeah. We always had, between my Aunt Sally and Uncle Maynard and our family, we always had one of the holidays, we'd always invite friends or someone who didn't have any family in Omaha to always join us, and that was fun. And one thing I will remember, I was reminded of a number of times, my dad invited a lot of his friends to my mother's apartment for lunch, and she made a fabulous lunch. And these were not Jewish friends; these were just his buddies, and they never could quit talking about it. How wonderful the food was, and how much fun they had, and my grandmother, and all that, and that was special.
And my dad it was a pretty good deal because a lot of his good friends were musicians. And they were, they didn't work during the day, and they had some of them more talented than my father when doing things around the house, things like that. So they would come fix things in the house, things like that, and my grandmother would feed them. And that was better than giving them money.
Yeah.
Also, we were close with the Telpner family, that my aunt married Mariner Telpner, and his parents, we were very close to them and their family. So we had kind of a nice big family between the Telpners and the Priesmans.
Yes. My Uncle Maynard's mother, Sylvia, was a real character and a lot of fun. And she used to. There was a theater in Council Bluffs. I don't know the name of it anymore, but she was in all the plays there. And anyway, she was a real.
She was an actress in them. She produced them. She was a writer. So they were just a lot of fun to be around. A lot of fun to be around.
And we used to go to Council Bluffs on Sundays, and we would have picnics outside in the park. And they have beautiful parks there. But I'll never forget the one that we had when we were just getting the food out and the bees came, and we all ran. But I'll never forget that one. That was funny. But no one got hurt.
Also used to like to go to the Telpner's house because it was this big old house. And I don't know if it had 2 floors or 3, but it seemed just like the biggest house with these big steps going up and everything. And it was just a lot of room and just a lot of fun. I remember one of my fondest memories was going to camp at Camp JCC. I started going to camp when I was 6. And I continued on for a long time. Then I went away to other camps, and I came back when I think I was after my freshman year in college or sophomore year, and was a camp counselor, and I was working for Sherm Poskin, and who I got to know fairly well through AZA and things like that, and it was a fun experience, Camp Esther K. Newman. But just going to basic camp JCC, I look forward to it every year.
I went to JCC camp, and I liked that camp. And then after that camp, wait a minute, wasn't there a day camp? I'm not sure, but there was a night camp, a nice sleepover camp and all that. That was fun. And then I went a couple of years to Camp Herzl, and with a lot of the kids from Omaha. That was a great time. A lot of nice girls there, and we had a ball.
I went to preschool at the JCC, and we lived out in North Omaha at that time. And I used to take a taxi. My mom didn't drive. I used to take a taxi back and forth to school, preschool. And I tell people that, and they think, how could you little kids take a taxi? Well, my mom didn't drive at that time, and it just seemed like normal. And then we moved to Hamilton, and the rest of the days were spent on Hamilton Street.
I don't think I went to preschool. I don't remember it.
High school was a wonderful 4 years. A lot of great friends. Of course, friends we'd grown up with from 5 years old on. I was very active in AZA. Held some regional, local offices, district, region, all that. Went to, all the conventions. Went to Camp B'nai B'rith when I was in high school for, I guess, 4 weeks. Met a lot of wonderful people there that I've run into a few of them over the years, but I enjoyed being in leadership positions, working not only with the chapter I was in, which was Chaim Weitzman, but with all the chapters, and had friends there. I wasn't, it was like my life. AZA was my life, but I also always worked, usually in retail. So I was pretty busy. It was the AZA and the working was more important than school at that time. But I can go back and remember my high school days and just fond memories of all of it. I was a very, very happy. I was a happy child altogether, and high school was just a great culmination prior to leaving for college, which was a wonderful experience too.
I was in AZA 1000. It was Ronu at the time, and we had a pretty good time. It was a lot of fun, and the parties, with all the BBG and the AZA parties were pretty neat, and always a king or queen or something, I can't remember. But
The Beau.
The Beau, yeah.
The Beau and the Sweetheart.
The Beau and the Sweetheart. And then there were also dances out at Peony Park for the high school dances that everybody went to. Those were great, and the bands were good.
Yeah, I gave the Christmas prom with Bill Rosen, and we made good money. It was a very nice profit-making thing that we did, and it was fun to do. And I don't think we ever met. I always went to all those dances out at Peony Park.
Yeah.
I even worked at Peony Park. That was one of my first jobs outside of mowing lawns, which I did starting when I was very young. And I ran the rides one summer, and I was paid 50 cents an hour. And I think I got a raise to 60 cents an hour. So that goes back a long way.
I worked, in high school also, and I did a lot of retail work. But I mowed lawns too to get started. Did a lot of that, and but I worked for Nebraska Clothing. Remember that, the college shop or something? It was a lot of fun actually.
Gordon's.
Oh yeah, I worked for the first Gordman's on North 16th Street. Just opening the boxes and putting stuff out, and also sold shoes at Rick's Shoes on 72nd and Dodge. That was Norman Bank and Schmerin and Norman Schmerin. And Barry Goldberg and I sold shoes for them part-time, and when they got slow, and they would, they had us cleaning the whole place up and cleaning the bathrooms and cleaning, and we said, we can't do this anymore. So we went into, for a short time, we went into the light bulb business, Barry and I, and we sold Merlite light bulbs. Light bulbs guaranteed to last forever. And we went door to door selling these bulbs, and it was really something. We had a boss. We had a guy we worked for, Leroy Penley, and Leroy will never be forgotten. That's all I can tell you. We had a lot of fun doing that.
I had a lawn service. I mean, I had always mowed lawns from the time people would give me the job to do it. And I had a lawn service with Perry Ratner. And Dick Weiner, who was, I believe, worked for the JCC at the time, he kind of bankrolled us. And he had this old 1942 truck. And he was our partner. And we used to drive that old 1940 truck around. And I'll never forget, every once in a while, or fairly often actually, the pin would come out from the steering wheel. And you had to find the pin that fell out so you could put it back, because you could not steer. And that was one summer, I think. And then I also think about when they used to shovel snow. And, it was a big deal, and you shoveled the neighbor's snow, and a single drive was $3 and a double drive was $5, and
oh my God,
you you had to get the snow over the retaining wall, and we weren't tall people. And I tell people a story that, so I told my kids that, and they thought, huh? Nobody shovels snow. But we're Texans, so.
I also worked for the Novaks. I worked at Novak Cadillac, and there were some other friends there that worked part-time too in the summer, and we did a lot of car cleaning and detailing. And I also worked at the Cadillac for a while, and I was in the service department. And when someone needed a ride home, I would drive their Cadillac home with them in it, drop them off, and drive the Cadillac home. So or back to the shop. I was 16 years old driving these Cadillacs around Omaha. And they also had a big deal. They bought 1,000 British Leyland cars that had been sitting on a dock and a small hurricane came up, and so they bought all these cars, Morris Minors and Austin Healey's and MGs and I'm forgetting a few of them, I don't know, one Austin Martin. Anyway, the cars were filthy, and so in the summertime we're up there, non-air conditioned, we're up there scrubbing them and buffing them and all that, and it was kind of an interesting thing because all the cars were down at the old Sears building, and then we cleaned them and then we brought them back. And I did have a friend of mine, I will not name him, that worked there with me, that accidentally parked a car kind of on the ramp on the second floor, but he forgot to engage the brake, and the car went down, and there wasn't much left of the car after that. And one of the Novaks actually saw that happen and said, "You're no longer employed here." But we had fun. You know, those were interesting jobs for a kid. After, of course, high school, I went to the University of Oklahoma, and as Alan did, and I met my wife there. I was fixed up with Rhoda for a party, and we ended up getting married after a few years. Rhoda is from Texas, and so and she went to Oklahoma. She wanted to meet a new group of people, but she did. So, and I liked my years at Oklahoma very much. I was there for 2.5 years. And I decided that because of the Vietnam War, and I thought it would be best to get into the reserves. So I got into the Air Force Reserves, and went for training and all that. So I came back to the University of Omaha to finish college, and I did a lot of odd jobs going there, but. We were the last graduating class at the University of Omaha, and then it became UNO. And there were a lot of my friends ended up going there. And anyway, and then when Rhoda being from Texas, my folks loved her, and we were very close with her folks, very nice people. And my dad would always say, "My Texas girl," my Texas daughter, and they just loved Rhoda. And when we ended up getting married right after I graduated college, and then what was I going to say? Oh, right after I graduated college. And so I had also been working part-time in college at All Makes Office Equipment. Larry Cabbage says, "Why don't you come down and work a little bit for us?" And I did, and I liked it. And they had just opened up a Lincoln store. It was there for a year, and they needed somebody really to run it. So right out of college, I went down there and ran the office furniture store at 11th and O. it was my career for 43 years until I retired. And I worked with the Cabbage family. I worked with Laser Cabbage, with Larry Cabbage. I worked with Bill Fogel. I was very close with Bill. He was my mentor. And also Irv Singer was just my closest friend. And I'll never forget those people. But anyway, I had a great career. And Rhoda and I like Lincoln. And we've also been there for 43 years.
Well, after I graduated, I also went to the University of Oklahoma. I wanted to head south, and I had a great 4 years or so. Met a lot of people from all over the country. Actually, also, I had a lot of friends that went to the University of Oklahoma, so there were a lot of Omaha people at OU when I was there. And I got a degree in advertising. I was a Phi BD ZBT fraternity person. I enjoyed the atmosphere of Oklahoma. It was a fun school. It was well known for being a party school, and it was. But we also got an education. And after graduation, I stayed there 2.5 years. I traveled on the road in the clothing business. And after I graduated, I started dating Elaine, my wife. She was a freshman when I was a senior, and I had met her, and we kind of got together after I had graduated college. And once we decided to get married, I had to get off the road, and I ended up going to work for Rikers Container. And one of the things about that was, I said, I'm not going to work for you to live in Omaha. And if you have other opportunities in the South or in Texas or whatever, and they happen to have operations in Dallas, Austin, or Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston, and Houston was available. And that's how we ended up moving to Houston, because my wife is from Chicago, but she didn't care for cold weather either. So 42 years ago, we moved to Texas, moved to Houston, and we've been there ever since. I didn't stay with Rikers that long. I think I was with them for 2 or 3 years, and it was a good experience. They were wonderful people to work for, but I had wanted other opportunities, and I eventually went into the floor covering business. I actually ran an ad in the Jewish Herald Voice there, advertising myself, which was an unusual thing. And one of the gentlemen that called me, I think he just wanted to meet me because I did something different. And I finally, after talking to him for about 6 months, decided to go work in the floor covering business, and it was more of a commercial floor covering, apartments, office buildings, things like that. And I worked there for a few years, and then he and 2 other people that I worked with, we left that company and started our own company. And we grew that company, and we sold that in 1991 or something like that. And then my wife and I bought an direct mail advertising business, and we were in that for about 9 years, and we sold that. And my wife had been a travel agent, an interior designer, and so on, and then we were in business together, and we did fine together, but it was time to sell that business. And then in between things, I even worked for Habitat for Humanity for 2.5 years, and I started a profit-making venture for them, which was fun. It was a Restore, which is a Home Depot type discount store. So I did the whole thing, we found the location, people, and so on. And you know, I met some very, very interesting people when working for Habitat that I would have never met if I didn't. I met from people that were awarded the houses, and I met Oprah Winfrey because she came in and she paid for 70 houses in Houston. So that was a nice thing to do for a few years. And then I ended up in the insurance business with my son, and I've been doing that for about 12 years. And I enjoy working with my son. He's running the company now, and doing a phenomenal job. And I'm still working, and I plan to work till he carries me out, is what I tell him, because I like working, and it also affords me, I could come and go as I please. I have another son who is in the music business. So there was a little bit with my father, music, and my son, but he is a professional sound engineer, and I always tell him I should have grown up as you, because he's traveled all over the world. He loves what he does, and he's an independent contractor, works for different bands, and has seen the world and continues to do so. And he's 35. My other son is 38. My oldest son, who I work with, is married, and I have two beautiful granddaughters, and they're doing great.
Rhoda and I have two children. I have Corey, who lives in San Francisco, and he's a psychiatrist, and he's married with two grandkids, Elise, who is 10, and Leo, who's 12. And they're just great kids. And my daughter, Jamie, is married, and she lives in Cincinnati. And she's married to a dentist, and to Jeff. And they have two little boys. They have a almost 3-year-old, and they have an almost 4-year-old. And cute kids. And so we spend a lot of time with the kids, and fortunately, I am retired, and we do see them a lot, and they come here quite a bit. They love to come home. They love to come home to Lincoln. They just don't want to live in Lincoln, but they love it. And we also do some more traveling, Rhoda and I, and like to keep busy, like to go out and see sights. When we moved to Lincoln, we were young. We were pretty young. We didn't have kids yet. We used to come to Omaha a lot just to see our friends in Omaha. And then we got settled into Lincoln and made it home, and have a lot of friends there, good friends. And we belong to the Conservative Temple there, and have a lot of friends there. And there's also a Reform Temple, and a lot of people I know. But I say that I spend a lot of time working and a little bit of volunteering, not a lot. But I love living in Lincoln.
I come back to Omaha not that often, but when I do, I come back and I drive through the city. I do my tour, and I still love to do that, whether I go by my old house, my old schools, where Todd's Drive-In used to be, or different restaurants used to be, just because it's all good memories.
If you think about our old neighborhood on Hamilton Street, we had the Jacobsons, we had the Saffersteins, Kaufmans, Manvitzes, and the Zelinskis,
the
Hocksters,
The Ratners.
Yes, the Ratners.
I'm missing some.
The Boguschwalds.
Boguschwalds. The,
There was another.
Debbie, I can't remember all the names. Stallmasters,
Yes,
Farbers.
yes. There was
Lynn.
Nina. There was one for a couple from Canada. Can't think of what their name was. But anyway, we had a very nice, great block, and a lot of kids.
Well, yeah, a lot of kids were out there, and we all played together, and I think everybody had very fond memories. You know, because I mean, I know people from Omaha that I talk to occasionally and so on, or I'll meet some. I know somebody from Omaha, and I said I know them, and so on. I said the Jewish community, that everybody knew everybody, and they said everybody seemed to like growing up in Omaha.
We, besides our block, I mean, we had Johnny Spitzer, grew up with. He was right around the corner. Marty Ricks lived close. And then if we walked across the street to Glenwood Road, we had Alan Cohn, and we had Jerry Slusky, and we had, I'm gonna forget a few, the Endelmans, and help me out, Alan. We had
Novaks, Greenbergs,
yes,
Hobermans, Foxes. I mean, just the whole. We were a little farther away from Bagel Hill, but yet we were close.
yeah. It was a walk.
And it was hanging out in Bagel Hill in the summer nights and things like that, and it was just good memories.
Yeah, the Weinsteins
Yeah.
and the Friedmans,
Friedmans.
and the Sharon Cohen.
I mean, there was just so many people, and it was nice to know everybody. You really did. You know almost everybody. And of course, you couldn't get away with as much because you knew everybody.
You go ahead.
Growing up in Omaha, Nebraska was very special to me because of the relationships I had with my friends. They were truly sincere. We'd do anything for each other. And you don't always see that as much now as I did then, because anytime that I get together with old friends, it's like picking up right where we left off. And it was just that kind of friendly, wonderful place.
I have about the same thing. I have still have very close friends here, and it's like we're still kids again. We just enjoy being together, and I have friends in Lincoln. I have plenty of good friends in Lincoln, but it's different. The ones I grew up with in Omaha are special. And even if they don't live here anymore, we stay in touch.
Because I try to keep up with some of my close friends, and I'm good at remembering birthdays. So I place that call once a year and talk to them. And we have long conversations, even though we haven't seen each other in a couple of years.
I find that when we have small get-togethers in Omaha with friends, and it's like it's like we never did. We never were away from each other. I mean, it's great. It's warm. We're just good friends.
And my wife, after 42 years, she can't believe there's still those relationships, because she grew up in Chicago and she had good friends, but she's not in contact with those friends anymore. And she tells people, it's like he's got these friends that he's had since he was born. and they're still good friends, and it still amazes her.
I'll tell a friend's story. When we lived out north for the first 10 years, and then when we moved to Hamilton Street, I didn't have any friends yet, and my mother found out that, my mother was from Chicago, that the Goldwers were moving back to town, and they had a son, Barry, who was my age. And so I got on my bicycle. I was a bicycle rider. I still am. And he lived up in Lafayette. And I was riding up there, and I saw this kid on this bike. And I caught up with him, and I said, "Are you from Chicago? Or I'd like to be your friend. And I heard you were coming to town." And Barry, that's one of my closest friends, Barry Goldberg. And we still tell the story, It's wonderful.